A chemical to combat another chemical seems like a logical plan, doesn't it? Unless that same chemical you're developing has more destructive power than the very one you're trying to stop. And a man in a clock tower starts losing his patience and his mind, but maybe, just maybe, it's not entirely on his own accord. Today I have for you Agent Indigo by Noctevoire and Clocktower by Anonymous. Two biological bizarre stories that are sure to get under your skin. And a huge shout out to my Earl Grey enforcers, Matthew Bauer, Lee Bauer, Chad Warren, Andrew Benezzi, Lorraine Cresanto, Mace Joe, and Peter Raffaelli for your awesome support. It's people like yourself that keep the blood pumping in this show. Now turn the lights off, turn up the sound, and get ready for some biohazard stories. Agent Indigo. Recovered from the logs of an abandoned North Vietnamese research center, circa 1977. Translated, August 12, 1962. The American plains overhead have just finished their daily defoliation routes. The air is thick with herbicide. I write this through a gas mask. Our soldiers are suffocating in this toxic environment. We are simply outnumbered in the unfortunate location of our outpost. Luckily, our food supplies remain hidden from aerial view, and we can only hope that none of the chemicals find it, lest we all starve. The only detail keeping me from leaving this wasteland is the generous grant given to us by the Honorable Lao Dong officials, a sum of over 10 trillion dong. This is enough for us to continue our research into creating an antidote for the American herbicide Agent Orange. The successful creation of a herbal exfoliant would put an end to the mindless extermination of our crops and provide our citizens and soldiers with sufficient rations. This could be the chance the glorious state of North Vietnam is looking for. Our chemists are extracting samples from the affected plant as I write. Hopefully, we will have the exact compound used in producing the diabolical substance by the end of the week. August 15, 1962. We have at last made essential progress towards our goal. After 3 grueling days of research, we have now narrowed the possible chemical compound used in Agent Orange to the following: 2,4-D/2, 4,5-T isocetyl ester, which may even include traces of 2,3,7,8-TCDD. If such is the case, it is clear that our American enemy is constructing a mass genocide of epic proportions. Lao Dong has cleared the reverse engineering of the herbicide, effective September 1st. We await this day with bated breath. August 16, 1962. It has been confirmed that Agent Orange contains dioxin, which means it can now be officially considered a bioweapon. However, our suspicions as to why the chemical is present have been disproven. Having salvaged the wreckage of an American plane, we now see that the orange paint, its namesake, used on the barrels have seeped into the solution. This is both disturbing and exciting news. It means that all people who have come in contact with the herbicide are prone to extremely painful ailments, including rashes, blisters, and even cancer of the lungs and prostate. This explains the disease raging through our soldiers. However, it almost means that our enemies are much more careless than we originally thought. We are preparing formulas for the impending project, and it cannot come soon enough. Addendum: some of the soldiers have entirely lost their skins on their legs and arms. This situation is becoming increasingly dangerous. September cannot arrive soon enough. August 23, 1962. The formulas are complete. We look forward to the physical manifestation of the chemical. The air outside has become so thick with defoliant that we must wear full-body hazmat suits and gas masks whenever we walk outside. The soldiers that have remained at the site have been taken inside for protection. One positive that I can report: Our food supply is still intact and flourishing. High hopes are present among the entire research staff. August 29, 1962. This morning, some of the spray from an overhead plane leaked into the bunker, causing a severe allergic reaction in one of the hospitalized soldiers. He is currently suffering from anaphylactic shock and is only serving to prove that the experiment must be conducted as soon as possible. I fear for our safety, as long as this hateful war continues. August 31st, 1962. We have decided to move our entire sample supply of crops indoors in preparation for the experiment. The plants in question include varieties of wheat, corn, groundnut, indigo, and wild rice, all salvaged from our herbicide-proof greenhouse. We plan to remain indoors for the majority of the chemical tests, so as to prevent any excess agent from leaking into the base. Our sustainable food crop cannot be moved, unfortunately, and we hope to send one volunteer each day to collect enough for the staff and soldiers. We simply cannot afford another casualty. Last we checked, the plot is herbicide-free, so we have relatively high spirits as we enter into the month-long test of our new chemical, which we have decided to call Agent Indigo, as a protest to the rainbow herbicides employed by the American Army. September 1st, 1962, Day 1, in the bunker. Our staff is concocting a batch of Agent Indigo right next to me as I write. It looks every bit as exciting as I had hoped. Our first food run was conducted today, and Fan, our youngest associate, was successful. We now have enough wheat germ and flour to make a healthy bread meal for our entire staff. September 2nd, 1962, Day 2. The first vial of indigo is ready for testing. We only have a limited supply of lab mice, so hopefully they will reproduce quickly. Observations of initial tests on mice. Control shows no effect. Sample 1 shows mild skin irritation but no adverse side effects. Sample 2 shows no effect. Sample 3 shows minor hair loss on applied area. Plants. Control dies shortly after exposure to orange. Sample 1 with only indigo shows orange resistance on all crops. Sample 2 with indigo and sugar solution shows orange resistance on all crops except groundnut. A productive day overall. We are trying to eliminate all possible side effects so that we do not result in another bioweapon. September 3rd, 1962, Day 3. We've created a new sample that will hopefully eliminate the hair loss and skin irritation. Mice. Control shows no effect. Sample 1 shows no effect. Sample 2 acquires bloodshot eyes and minor irritation. Sample 3 shows minor irritation. Plants. Control dies shortly after exposure. Sample 1 shows resistance on only indigo crops. Sample 2 shows resistance on only indigo crops. Well, it seems there is more work to do. September 4th, 1962, Day 4. Mice. Control shows no effect. Sample 1 shows no effect. Sample 2 and Sample 3 shows no effect. Plants. Control dies shortly after exposure. Sample 1 shows resistance on all crops except groundnut. Example 2 shows resistance on all crops. Now, we have something to go on. Groundnut appears to be the most susceptible to orange and least affected by indigo. We may be close, and weeks before our deadline. September 7, 1962, Day 7. I think we may have our formula. We're going to conduct what will hopefully be our final test. Mice. Controls shows no effect. Sample 1 shows no effect. Sample 2 shows no effect and Sample 3 shows no effect. Plants. Control dies shortly after exposure. Sample 1 shows resistance on all crops. Sample 2 shows resistance on all crops. This is excellent! We have our product. Addendum. Yang was today's food runner, and after coming back he said the air was so thick with Agent Orange that he could barely see, and that the majority of his delivery was contaminated in the process. We have to begin rationing our supplies. September 8, 1962, Day 8. Mice. Control shows no effect. Sample 1 shows no effect. Sample 2 shows no effect, and Sample 3 shows no effect. Plants. Control dies shortly after exposure. Sample 1 shows resistance on all crops. Sample 2 shows resistance on all crops. This has confirmed our hopes. Agent Indigo is ready for deployment. We may as well start filling our barrel stock with Indigo prematurely, since we have over 3 weeks left to spend down here before the escort arrives. Addendum. After the crew had gone to sleep, I went back to euthanize the mice. 2 of the samples showed signs of minor aggression and irritation. I have no desire to report this, as it seems benign and should in no way halt our research. September 10th, 1962, Day 10. We have so much indigo crop left over from the experiments that we have trouble finding something to use it for. It was the only crop that did not die in any of our tests. Since it is a dye after all, we are now using it to sterilize the barrels, like the Americans did with theirs. While none of us want to, we must still conduct experiments until at least the 15th, as per Lao Dong's orders. From now on, all further observations should be considered arbitrary. Mice. Control shows no effect. Sample 1 shows no effect. Sample 2 shows no effect. Sample 3 shows no effect. Plants. Control dies shortly after exposure. Sample 1 shows resistance on all crops. Sample 2 shows resistance on all crops. Addendum. While euthanizing the mice tonight, one of the bastards bit me on the finger. It was wriggling like a cat was chasing it as I plunged the needle into its fur. This piqued my interest. Could a delayed side effect be abnormal aggression? While it is insignificant compared to cancer, it is still something to consider. I shall be watching the subjects more closely from now on. September 13th, 1962, Day 13. We had an accident while packing the agent today. Fan had the idea to paint the barrel while it was already full, and it fell over and doused him in the chemical. We've hospitalized him in case any unknown side effects present themselves, although this is unlikely. Mice. Control shows no effect. Sample 1 shows no effect. Sample 2 shows no effect, and Sample 3 shows no effect. Plants. Control dies shortly after exposure. Sample 1 shows resistance on all crops, and Sample 2 shows resistance on all crops. Addendum. When I went to euthanize the mice tonight, Sample 2 was biting into the flesh of the control, who had been killed just moments before I arrived. This is highly worrisome. I am beginning to think the batch is tainted in some way. I will notify the staff tomorrow that we should produce another batch. September 14th, 1962, Day 14. News of a disturbing nature has just presented itself. Today was my turn to collect supplies, and as soon as I stepped through the door, I could see what Yang had meant. Visibility is frighteningly low, almost as if the clouds had descended upon us. The situation became dire when I arrived at the crop site and found that it had become overrun by Agent Orange. I returned as fast as I could to the base and relayed the news. Luckily, we have enough to last us 2 more weeks, which means we should escape the fate of starvation, but only just. Mice. Control shows no effect. Sample 1 shows no effect. Sample 2 shows no effect. Sample 3 shows no effect. Plants. Control dies shortly after exposure. Sample 1 shows resistance on all crops. Sample 2 shows resistance on all crops. Now that we have replaced the old batch with one taken from the sealed barrels, results should be more conclusive. Addendum. Tonight the mouse situation has become serious. All 3 mice were dead when I checked the cage, with their organs strewn about the floor. I assume there must have been a massive fight between the 3 in response to one or more turning aggressive. This means that aggression is a standard side effect, which could potentially lead to murderous intentions. It is imperative that I keep a close eye on Fan, and to not tell the others. September 15th, 1962, Day 15. At last, the final test. Hopefully, the side effects will go unnoticed by the rest of the crew. Mice. Control shows no effect. Sample 1 shows aggression towards control. Sample 2 shows minor aggression towards control. Sample 3 shows no effect. Plants. Control dies shortly after exposure. Sample 1 shows resistance on all crops, and Sample 2 shows resistance on all crops. This is not good. The experiment showed that our last 4 lab mice had an urge to induce violence on one another. Luckily, the staff agreed that it was too late to change it, and that it was already proven to prevent damage from orange. We're getting to the last of the barrels now, and we still have Indigo to spare. Addendum. I sincerely believe we are in trouble. We had separated the mice due to the danger of one killing another, and when euthanization time came, all 3 sample mice had quite literally imploded. Their organs and skeletons were hanging from the outside of their skin, as if they had been turned inside out. I threw the mice corpse into the furnace and hoped that no one would question their disappearance. Addendum. One of the soldiers taking shelter here came into contact with a batch tonight. He has been hospitalized next to Fan. September 22nd, 1962, day 22. Yang found one of the untouched corpses in the damn furnace. I informed him on the situation reluctantly, and fortunately, he agreed to keep it quiet. He took the remaining mouse and applied some of the chemical. It was only 17 minutes before it began to convulse wildly, spewing blood out of its orifices. What we witnessed next was truly horrifying. The mouse's skeleton was forced out of both the mouth and anus, and the skin receded into its ears, eyes, and genitalia. Its muscles were clearly spasming out of control, forcing out anything inside the body that was not Agent Indigo. After the process was complete, we could see clearly that its veins were pumping the chemical rapidly, with its heart, lungs, kidneys, liver, and stomach were hanging by thin strands of flesh attached to the skeletal midsection. It was a disgusting sight, and we ordered the staff to quarantine Fan and the soldier. Considering the human inner workings are much larger than a mouse's, it should only be a few more days before it happens. I can barely sleep now, just thinking that this will occur to them. Addendum. It's approximately 2:45 in the morning. I can hear moaning from down the hall. I think it has begun. The following is from a set of scribbled notes recovered along with the log. Account of the conversation. The moaning is not stopping. I understand it should take longer for a human to turn compared to a mouse, but it has been over 2 hours now. It is 3:10. I can hear yelling from the quarantine zone. Oh God, I can hear them. I can hear their screams. The pain they must be enduring. The screams are being muffled now. It must be close to the end of the process. Yang is in the room with me. He says Fan has turned, but he is still moving. How is that possible? The soldier has turned now. I can hear the shrieking. I plan to run with Yang to the storage room. It is the furthest place from the quarantine zone. We just heard glass breaking. One of the soldiers just came running into the room in a panic. He is dripping with sweat and blood, but he claims it is not his own. He claims that Fan and the other soldier are still very much alive. I am terrified. We are about to make the run to the storage room. Oh God, what have we done? As we were running down the hallway, I caught a glimpse of what used to be Fan, rolling onto the floor with his skin turned inside out. I could hear the soldiers still attempting to scream from the quarantine zone. How are they still alive? Yang just went out to try and salvage some rations from the refrigerator, which involves passing the quarantine zone. May God be with him. Oh my God. They knocked him down. How? Oh my God. I fear I may not live to see an end to the destruction of Agent Orange. What they did to Yang was disgusting. They enveloped him. I heard him screaming, the chemical pouring from their veins onto him. I remember him calling out one last phrase, choking on Agent Indigo. Kill the pain. We left him drowning. It is 5. The rest of the staff is in here with us. We are huddling around each other, and all we can hear is the muffled moan of those things that used to be human. They're rolling their mangled bodies towards us. They just knocked a barrel over next to one of the soldiers. Indigo is all over the floor. The barrel. Oh my god. We were so stupid. It was in the barrels. It was the damn barrels. We made the same mistake the Americans made. Only this time, we may have endangered the lives of everyone in this country. Of course, the Indigo plant fared so well. The Indigo was a chemical agent of its own. The plant material fills some missing piece, which, when introduced to organic matter, expels it from the inside. The barrel material just accelerated the effects, and the aggression, it just made it worse. My god, it is deliberately knocking over the barrels. They're all soaked. Everyone, I am the only one still clean. I have to go. October 2nd, 1962, day 33. They lied. Laodong never sent backup. It has been a full day since the rescuers promised to arrive, and I can ensure that they are either dead or non-existent. North Vietnam will die because of this. I am currently at the exit. It's 8:45. I'm standing in the doorway, peering outside. It is dawn, and the herbicide is everywhere. It persists, even when the planes have stopped targeting this area days ago. I cannot see a thing. I can hear gunfire from all around the outpost. Even though it is most likely miles away, it is still deafening. But I can still hear them. Those things that used to be my colleagues. I hear them rolling about the facility, moaning softly, as if to say,
"It's fine. Come be with us."
Death is certain, no matter where I go. Although, I think I would rather stay and face the hell inside this bunker than the hell that is going on out there. The pain endured by those things could never amount to the pain endured by the people of Vietnam who are forced to fight this war. If anyone finds this note, please destroy all that remains of Agent Indigo. The log and notes were discovered by American troops shortly prior to their withdrawal from the country. No trace of the alleged substance Agent Indigo was ever found. No bodies were ever recovered. Written by Noctevoire. Clocktower. Day 1. Just another fucking day at the Clocktower, but at least it keeps me away from those people. Every day it is the same thing over and over. Why wouldn't someone want to get away? Having a son that talks to things that aren't there? His friends are always saying shit like boop shi boop or meow meow. After almost every fucking sentence, it is almost enough to drive someone insane, if they are around it long enough. My wife, goodness, I feel bad for her. She has to be around it more than I am, and even she seems to be losing it a bit. But she has a stronger bond with our son than I do, so I guess that helps her. Don't get me wrong, I love my son to death, but I just wish he was normal. I always have to act like a nice guy when his friends are around. But it is so hard, especially when the prince is here. I can't help but want to maul his face every time he says it. You know, the boop shi boop. I get it, they are kids, and I shouldn't feel this way, but enough is enough. I am slowly going insane. The Clocktower. Oh, my sanctuary from it all. All the ticking helps drown out those thoughts. Those horrible thoughts. I mean, I am a born hunter. Maybe they aren't so horrible. Day 2. Wife is making me sleep at the Clocktower tonight. Obviously, I am in trouble. The prince comes to play with my son today, and he said it once too many times. So I smacked him. I told him to stop saying that stupid shit. It made him cry. I felt kinda bad after. I snapped to and realized what I had done. But at the same time, I felt amazing. I feel amazing. Going to try and get some sleep. The ticking helps. I can't stop smiling. Day 3. The king fired me as the Clocktower worker today. I saw that coming. I have no escape now. I have to be there and hear it all. He was talking to the imaginary people again today. His doctor said we need to up his medication. The doctor said we should sing more songs with him. But I really don't feel like it. I love my son, but I don't know how much more I can take. Day 4. The prince went missing last night. Everyone thinks I did it. But I was at home, I think. Day 5. They found the prince's body in a nearby lake. I saw it. It looked horrible. Like someone had just sliced him all over and over. His guts were spilling out from his backside. One of his arms was missing and his face looked as if someone had chewed on it. They all are still looking at me. Why would I hurt a child? Day 6. Things are getting worse. My wife has decided to take our son off his medication. He is acting even more strange. He wants raw bloody meat all the time now. Is this what I've been waiting for? Even my wife has gone back to her old ways. She doesn't cook the meat for us. We eat it raw, and we like it. It tastes so good. The blood running down my throat. I love it. I need more. Day 7. This will be the last entry for me. We are going hunting today. I think the town is trying to hide in the castle. We got the White Cat family yesterday. Their meat was so tender and so amazing. I remember looking over and seeing our son devour his little friend. He looked like he really enjoyed himself. We are heading to the castle soon. I am so excited. I finally get to shut all them motherfuckers up. Finally! A radio news report. The fugitives have been shot and killed. Their reign of terror has ended. It is all over. It is safe to leave your homes again. After they attacked and killed the royal family, police were able to stop them as they were leaving the castle. The royal family was found torn apart, just as the prince was when his body was found earlier this week. The king was found in his study, his jaw was gone, his eyes were wide open with a look of terror, and his throat was sliced open and it looked like the fugitives licked the blood as it came out. The queen was found in the bedroom with her stomach torn open and all her insides were gone. It looks like they ate every single bit. The older prince was found in the backyard with his head completely dismembered. It is a horrible scene, folks. Many lives were lost, but it is all over now. You can come out of your homes. You won't get hurt. After dark, dancing. Sometimes life will write the strangest stories. Looking back on the events now, I can't help but wonder about some of the things I did. A few of the things I allowed to happen, and wait in expectation of things to come. It started after I had moved to Japan for attending graduate school. No, maybe it started even before that. But this way makes it easier to tell. My new home was in the small suburb of one of the bigger cities on the Sea of Japan, close to the mountain range, and a river just a few feet from my place. It was a typical 2-story building you see in a lot of movies. Jokingly, I had made the remark that it almost looked like a haunted house from one of the horror movies I've seen growing up. The landlord laughed at me, obviously mocking my active imagination, so I chose not to comment any further. The entrance was a winding corridor, passing the door leading to the bathroom and the stairs to the upstairs, ending up in the surprisingly big kitchen. The second floor housed my room and an unused room, which led to a small balcony, which gave me a view of my neighbor's windows, and nothing else. It must have been a few weeks after I had moved in and had made it a habit to pass the junior high school on my way back home in the evening. An old post-war monstrosity of yellowish grey concrete, clearly too big now for the few students I saw running around every morning. Normally, almost all students have already left the building at that point, and only a few are running out of the gate after sports practice or some club activity. Today was different, though. I saw a light in one of the third-floor rooms, and the vague shapes of people dancing around. If it was a dancing club, why didn't they use the now empty sports hall? I kept staring up at the row of dirty windows until one of the students seemed to notice me. She came close to the window, resting her hand on the glass first, and then started motioning, as if she was waving. I nodded just not to seem rude, and headed on my way. Somehow, this strange encounter didn't leave my mind, so I decided to try and look it up on the internet. Not that I actually had that much free time, but a little procrastination couldn't hurt. My search for the school name left me with meager results, though. They didn't seem to have a dance club, or any clubs that would require dancing for that matter. So maybe it was preparation for a school event coming up. So I decided to go into more details and added the keyword dancing in Japanese. I would have prepared some coffee had I known how long this would have kept me up. The first few pages didn't give any proper results. Either the search engine gave me only parts of the word I'd searched for, or redirected me to a homepage of the school. Only some 10 pages later did I stumble upon an obscure little message board. Clearly no longer operated, with a message from a good 5 years ago that caught my interest. 7 Wonders of XX Junior High School. Number 4. The After Dark Dancing Club. Did anybody ever actually see this one? I heard about this one from one of the older students, but this is so obviously bullshit. Must have been some people who were into playing pranks. In Japan, there is this superstition that almost every school has a set of 7 ghost stories, the so-called 7 Wonders. Usually, it's the same stories over and over again. Hanako in the toilet stall, the girl in the mirror, red paper or blue paper, but I've never heard of a dancing club. I opened the page and was disappointed by how few entries there actually seemed to be in this topic, yet at least I found an outline of this ghost story. Name Kimon. 4444 at AE-DO-B6-DE-B4-D9. Date 20XX/07/15. Friday, 2 a.m. The After Dark Dance Club. After it gets dark and all the clubs have ended, the lights in the 3rd floor classroom in the northeastern wing of the school turn on, and shadowy figures start dancing. People unlucky enough to see this will have bad luck for the next month. It is said that these are the ghosts of all the students who died since the school opened. Who wants to check this out with me? The school building isn't open at night, but maybe we can see it from the street or the yard. The replies appeared to be from students of the school. The site was one of many occult phenomena message boards that many people are crazy about even today. Even the very few there were didn't seem too fond of the story, declaring it a hoax or made up. Name Nikuman89. Date 20XX/07/16. Saturday, 16:53. I asked my mum and she said she never heard of that story. You're full of shit, man. Go to hell. Name Sakura Manakai. Date 20XX/07/16. Saturday, 1802. I never heard of our school having any ghost stories, let alone all 7 wonders. Post the other ones or I won't believe any of this. This went on for a few more days. Then people stopped caring and the original poster didn't seem to have much investment either. I wouldn't have given it much attention if it hadn't been for another message. And that message that had been posted 4 years later. Name Kimon 444 at AE-D0-B6-DE-B4-D9. Date 20XX/07/15. Wednesday, 2 a.m. The After
Dark
Dance Club. After it gets dark and all clubs have ended, the lights in the 3rd floor classroom in the northeast of school turn on and shadows start dancing. People unlucky bad luck. 4, 4, 4, 4, 4. It is said that these are the ghosts of all the students who died since. With me, open it. The post seemed like it was written in a hurry, or at least by somebody who did not know how to write properly. But it was the same content, the same user. Why did he or she go through the trouble of posting again? 4 years later, no less. And what was the meaning of this ominous last line? Open what? This was when a sudden noise ripped me from my thoughts. No, not a noise, a sound I had grown so used to associate with a certain time, it made my skin crawl. It was the familiar sound of the school chime. I looked at my clock and it assured me that it was 2:04 in the night. Maybe I had imagined hearing it. Maybe my headphones made me mishear something. Maybe I left a video or a program running in the background. And still I couldn't shake off this feeling of unease, clawing at my nerves like a ferocious animal. My palms had become sweaty and my eyes shifted to the milk glass windows in my door. I almost expected an inhuman shape to rise up behind them. I did not know where this sudden sensation of terror came from, but it would not cease. In my mind, I heard scratching on the other side of the walls around my room. I felt as if suffocating. Eyes were peeking through the cracks of the sliding door. The wet sound of something dead being dragged along the floor outside my door made my skin crawl with an icy fever. It took me an eternity to muster up enough courage to rip open my door. Staring out into the all-consuming darkness of the corridor outside, I started wondering if there was even anything to be afraid of. Something drew me to the empty room next to mine, through the small door leading to the balcony. Outside, I looked at the starless sky, pitch black and foreboding, stretching out towards the pale walls of the school building. The light in the third-floor classroom in the northeastern wing was burning bright and yellow in the darkness. I saw them, waving to me, and I was waving back, their long white arms stretching out to me, beckoning me to come and dance with them, their spindly legs bending and flailing to the tune. They smiled so widely, stretching beyond the reaches of their face, the edges ripping and their grin pouring out. Their eyes were doorways, wide and open, dancing with blazing passion, unable to stop, unwilling to stop, contorting their bodies to the maddening beat of the drums and the monstrous whine of the ancient flutes. The school chime whispered in the dark. Soon they would be coming out of the gates, but it is closed now. Somebody has to open it. I have to open it. Open it. I hit my knee on the table when I jumped up from this weird dream. I looked at my computer screen, swished the mouse around to see the time, and noticed I must have fallen asleep while thinking about this message board. The weird, newer post was still in focus and must have been the root of my absurd dream. Summer was around the corner, and though it was still only early morning, it was unbelievably hot and humid. It was almost mid-July, and I was already hoping for the summer to end. I went out of my room and to the balcony to check the temperature outside. I let out a laughter that ended up sounding more like a snort, remembering my silly dream. That's when I noticed a piece of paper clinging to the railing. It must have been blown over by the wind from one of my neighbor's houses. I picked it up, nothing special, apparently ripped in half, but looking at it closer sent a shiver down my spine, and it was as if I was in my dream again. On the paper was a single word, in childish writing. Kimon. Did it mean anything? It wasn't a word that I immediately knew. I rushed back to my computer, wanting to know, wanting to extinguish this burning worry in the back of my chest. What I did find made me understand. No, not understand. I could feel what this was about, but I did not understand. There was nothing to understand. In that moment, the school chime resounded. It was as I was used to. It was time for the students to attend their first class of the morning, and yet it was as if I heard a faint drum and the whistle of a pipe riding on the sound of a bell. There is a lot to fear, I suppose. I still think I should search for more, but the etymology of that word, and the one newspaper article released 28 years ago I found make me unsure if I want to know more. Kimon translates to, in the yin-yang practice of Unmyodu, the cursed direction or places of the northeast from which all wickedness and evil demons enter. A place where misfortune befalls the one who enters. July 17th, 1980X. Wednesday. Unexplained fire claims 7 victims. Yesterday morning, the unidentified bodies of 7 people were discovered in an upstairs classroom of XX Junior High School. The fire apparently broke out in the late night and trapped the group in the room. The source of the fire, the reason for the victims being in the building during holidays, as well as their identities, are being researched by local police. Further information on the case is expected to follow. No article seems to have ever followed. Chatroom 98. Hi. I am currently in a bed inside St. Anne's Hospital in North London. Dr. Martin kindly allowed me to use his laptop so I can explain how I got here and what happened to me. My name is David Argento. I am 16 years old and apparently I am suffering from a mental illness of some kind. There was only so much I could take in from the doctor's words in the opposite patient room. Since I have a bloody massive headache, I've been given a fair amount of ibuprofen, but this headache seems permanent. But I don't care. I absolutely must get this written down at all costs. Anyways, you might be wondering how I got here. Here is my story. About 4 nights ago, I went upstairs to the loft and took my old school books to the burning pile. I just finished my GCSEs and, like all my friends, hated every single subject I did. Math, history, English, especially English. You name it, I really hated it. So I found the books exactly where I left them, a few months back. Or dumped, more like. In a corner that was so old, there was enough dust to make a candy floss. You know, cotton candy. I scorned the moment I looked at them again, except I knew this would be the last time I'd ever have to look at them. So I collected them all underneath one arm. Disgusting. I considered changing clothes shortly afterwards. But then something caught my eye. I'm not really sure how I noticed it, but I remember being so intrigued by it that I dropped the books on the loft floor.
What is that?
And picked it up. It was a red CD-ROM case, about the size of the average book. There were no words of any kind, even when I turned it over on the other side. Sod all. I was kind of excited. It looked like a computer game that the previous house owners had left behind. Since I absolutely loved computers at the time, I was interested in giving it a go on my Dell. But when I opened the case, the disc inside lacked any kind of artistic illustrations. Instead, just a bland white color with some text written on it in black marker pen. The words were Chatroom 98. I wasn't exactly pleased when I learned it wasn't a game, but since someone had actually went through the effort of making a chat room disc rather than the vast chat rooms available on the internet, I concluded it would be somehow different. That I got right. Having kicked the worthless books down the attic ladder, I inserted the discs inside my old laptop. After a brief moment, a red box with no text in it appeared. I wasn't sure what to make of it at first, but it seemed to linger there for half a minute. Then the screen went black for a brief moment and flashed. The words, "Welcome to Chatroom 98, appeared at the top center of the screen. Chatroom 98? What was the significance of that number? Then, what appeared to be a white text box opened up in the center. I didn't know what to type, so I randomly put, "Hello." I didn't expect any kind of response, but then I got one. A person by the name of Darwin Clark replied, "Good afternoon." There was no possible way that this person was real. It seemed like I was the only possessor of this chatroom disc. Then I realized it was one of those chatbots. a software designed to stimulate an intelligent conversation with whoever talks to it. ICT was the only thing I was good at. I still thought it was strange, though. I'd only lived in my current house for 6 years, but I had never encountered that red box in my entire life. I suppose the house's previous owners must have owned it, but it's not like they owned a computer. Unless you count the smashed to pieces one that we threw away to the dump when we first arrived. Anyway, I tried to start a conversation to see to what extent the AI had been programmed. "Lovely weather we have," I wrote. No sooner than 3 seconds, Mr. Clark replied, "No, it seems rather miserable today." I was taken aback. The weather was, more or less, exactly how he put it. I didn't know either until I looked out the window and saw that it was about to rain. It seemed the books had one more day to live. But I wasn't too surprised. The chatbot was probably programmed to say that, and since this is England I live in, it could probably been more than likely. I then typed in, "So, what are your favorite movies?" Again, I got a response. "I don't watch movies. I prefer the theatre." The theatre? Was I talking to an old man? I replied, "How old are you?" I didn't care if this bot got offended. It would have to give me an answer eventually. The answer was, "I'll tell you about myself. I was born in 1867 and grew up with 2 sisters whom I hated." Okay, right. Whoever programmed this was clearly having a laugh. I typed back, laughing hysterically as I wrote, "Well, I was born in 2098 with 2 identical twin brothers who are also aliens from the planet Boogaloo. I'm also Jesus." I wonder what that senile old man would say next. I knew it was a chatbot, but I kept thinking it was a real person for some unexplainable reason. He said, "Really? How droll. Nice to meet you, Mr. Jesus. Have your brothers abducted anyone yet?" I cracked up again. Whoever made this must have done an impressive job. I typed in, "Yes, they are actually alien pedophiles who prey on human children. You better watch out, they also have a fetish for CD-ROMs." The next reply was just plain unsettling. Clark replied, "Well, although I may appear to be a CD-ROM, I was actually a human myself. Once. Until I faced judgment for my transgressions." I didn't know what the fuck he was saying, but the poignant detail of his description startled me for a second. It felt real. Too real. And then, to my surprise, he typed another message. "You don't understand? Let me make myself plain. My sisters, whom I hated, met with a tragic accident." I was starting to feel calm. This was not just a chatbot. This must have been a psycho chatbot or something. Or it was a big joke. I typed in to see his reaction. "Do you know what else my brothers have done lately?" And then I was met with the biggest surprise of all. Darwin Clark responded again. I could see his message being typed, like a ticker tape typewriter. "You are an only child, David." What the actual fuck? I was seriously getting creeped out now, so I typed in, "What the fuck are you?" And the response simply couldn't have been made by an AI. It seemed too much like a human was actually talking to me. "Let me tell you a story. Do you know what happened to your house's previous owners?" I sat there like an idiot, staring at the computer, awaiting a response. "The same that happened to my 2 sisters. Remember? I despised both of them." That was it. I moved the cursor to the top right corner to click the cross button and end this nightmare. I was relieved. I had only been talking to it for 5 minutes, but it seemed like 2 hours. But when I tried to shut down the PC, the unthinkable happened. The computer became unresponsive. It went all glitched and fucked up. Worse still, the chat room opened by itself. I got another message, and by this time I was sure to be hallucinating by now. "You have not heard everything yet. I scrambled at the keyboard. I was losing my mind. Are you fucking with my computer? Stop! This is seriously not funny. Finally, I think this is where it happened. Darwin Clark typed in again, this time in a much slower ticker tape typewriting fashion than last time. I could hear nothing more than my own heartbeat. It intensified more and more with each passing letter. My face was practically melting with sweat. As I focused more and more on the letters, as they were being typed, the horrified expression of my face would have become so visible, I think I remember seeing it in the reflection of my laptop. The final message that he gave me, which lost me my sanity and ruined my health, was, "Look behind you." I remember feeling as if everything around me was slowing down. I really was worried. Part of me knew that there would be something behind me, and a small part tried to assure me that there was nothing there. I shut my eyes and clenched my teeth violently together, then shot my head back like a bullet. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I spat out a weak laughter and nodded my head in relief. And I felt like everything was safe again. Until I looked back to my computer monitor. I must have seen it the moment I swiveled my chair, but it caught me anyway. There was a face. A fucking face of a man. A fucking pale white man who was grinning at me. On my laptop screen. His hair was blonde, and he seemed to be in his mid-20s. But his facial expression was the exact opposite of friendly. His eyes were crimson red. I only saw it for a nanosecond of a nanosecond, but that was all I could take. After that, apparently I screamed violently, and then fell unconscious for 4 hours. That's what Dr. Martin told me. He's the guy looking after me at the moment. He really doesn't know what I've been through. So here I am now, sitting in a bed at 4:30 AM, typing the story to the world. Even as I type, I still worry that the face will appear once again and scare the shit out of me. I seem to be suffering from a trauma. My eyes have grown dark purple circles around them because I have literally not slept at all since the incident. I tried sleeping, but that face stops me from sleeping. Now that I have written this story, I urge everybody to watch out. If you see a red CD-ROM case, throw it away. Do not open it and do not use it. Now, I'm going to jump out a 3rd-story building. No, I can't take this anymore. I'm fucking scared. I want to die now. If anyone tries to resuscitate me, then fuck you too. And do not, I repeat, do not go looking for Darwin Clark. He may or may not be real, but he can drive you insane. You have read this message. Do not look for Darwin Clark. If you find him, you will lose your mind. Ah yes, nothing quite like ghost stories and haunted artificial intelligence to get the freakometer raising. Japanese ghost stories have this icy coldness and eeriness that I find a lot of ghost stories in other cultures lack. Don't get me wrong, folks, there are plenty of other culture ghost stories out there that keep me on a knife's edge, but the style of the Japanese ghost stories are definitely unique in nature. Anyone seen the film The Grudge? I'm sure if I made this sound, it'd bring back some terrifying memories for some, I'm sure. If you haven't seen it, do yourself a favor, see it. Or do yourself another favor and don't see it. I watched The Grudge around 8 or 9 years ago in a room full of friends, and let's just say the people getting scared there scared me more than the film at one point. So much screaming. Good times. Alright folks, I'll see you next week with a fully functional internet connection, maybe, and go from there. Because right now the state of it is equivalent to an Australian, yeah mate, your internet's fecked. So we'll see how I go then. But as always, till next we meet.